Oh, God.
Giro time.
Yes. Gelato. Limoncello.
Pizza.
Espresso.
Calzone.
Let's do it.
Episode 97 of The Wheelhouse. The Giro has ended, but Henk is back.
I am back.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
baby.
So good to be back.
We've been waiting for you to come back. We were going to record on Friday afternoon, but then we figured you might be back on Monday, so
Yes.
worth waiting for.
Well, if I came here on Friday afternoon, I would be talking a whole lot of gibberish because I was seriously jet lagged and still coming out of the twilight zone. So I'm happy you guys waited around for me.
It is. Well, we've got a lot to cover this week. We've got the Giro, of course, so much to unpack there. The Women's Tour of Britannia, Aussie flags everywhere. There, Henk, everywhere.
I love Britannia. I just spent some time there.
I hate it. Every time I've ridden there, it was pouring rain. There's too many hills for my liking, but alas. We need to deep dive into your Henks European adventures.
Yep.
I think we've got a fair bit to talk about there
Lots.
as well. And I want to talk about selection because at the end of this week, Oz Cycling is going to nominate the riders for the Paris Olympics.
It's always
I
good.
think there might be, and there's a few days for appeals. I think they might be used wisely. I think you've got some views on that.
Yes, we'll definitely get into that, and I'll try and keep calm.
But let's start on a high because I've got limoncello on my mind. I've got pizza calzone, all of it,
And how
delicioso.
good's the music? The
And
music.
how good is
There we
the
go.
music? Merxy,
Maxie's already
you've
come through with the
brought
goods. Already come through with the goods.
Yeah.
We haven't even started. Rocking it out.
Let's head over to Italy.
Love Giro.
There's a lot of excitement that's happened in the last 3 weeks, but there's one name that's prevailed overall.
The Pog.
The Pogacar. He wins by less than 10 minutes.
Actually, I thought he was going to win by like 25 minutes the way he was going in the first couple of weeks. Obviously, I mean, he just went on the offensive early, but I mean, for starters, the Giro is certainly, I think, is the best race of the year, and it always is. And we can't go into the talking about the Giro without, knowing that he was the standalone favourite. So, the guy was always going to shock a few and do what Pog does and ride away with those incredible watts that he's got and how efficient he always is. But really, his competition, it was kind of like, for everyone outside of the Giro talking about the GC, it was who was going to run second and third to him from the get-go, which is kind of a bit sad, but we're watching greatness. We really watched greatness all month.
So he won 6 stages, which is pretty staggering, until I took a bit of a deep dive and I realised that in 2004, Alessandro Petacchi won 9 stages.
Yep.
That's pretty phenomenal. That was your era.
That was my era, and I actually came up against him many, many times in 2005 and 2006 in the Giro. And going back to that guy, Alessandro Petacchi, so he rode for a team called Fassa Bordello, which is white and blue kit. Really cool. And Petacchi was, the whole team was just the lead-out train for him. There was no GC aspirations whatsoever. There was one guy who could climb to make sure that he was there for Petacchi. But back in those days, you could even start 9, I think, 8 or 9 in the Giro. So he had 8 lead-out men. And one of those guys, by the way, was a gentleman by the name of Fabian Cancellara, who started his career as a lead-out man for Petacchi. So can you imagine how many stages he was always going to win? He was an absolute legend. He was just a big, strong guy who had the fastest lead-out. And, if you're on his wheel and you just poked your head out to the side, you would realise how fast they're all going. So I'm not surprised he won so many. But Robbie and Gatesy and I managed to snag 6 off him in 2 years, in 2005 and 2006. So, but good times back in the Giro in those days. It's the Giro's, I think, the best race of the year for sure.
I've always said it's one of the better races too. In saying that though, I rode more than half a dozen, maybe closer to 10 women's Giros, and I loathed it because the organisation was always a bit of a shit show. And
for the women.
For the women's.
In your era.
In my era. And I'm not sure it's changed so much actually since then for the women. But Ben O'Connor, he came out pretty much swinging and said it's the most disorganised race on the entire big words.
Well, they are
Big
big words.
words.
Maybe he needs to come back down a few pegs and ride a few 2.2s and see how well they're organised. Because I just got back from Greece and I can tell you it's been a challenge just to get through the day. So I know I've done Grand Tours, and yes, it was a different era. It was mid-2000, not that long ago. They're great races, and I think they're well organised races. So I think he's needs to harden up a bit, and he's a strong bike rider. He's one of the world's best right now. But if you're a little bit cold, mate, you're paid millions of dollars to ride your bike, and if there's a safety issue, I get it. But if it's just a temperature issue, then you need to get on with it.
Okay, well, let's dive into that element of it a little bit more, because on one side, we could talk for hours about how much Pogacar dominated, and he did. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He really didn't have a moment's pause. There were no wobbles.
No.
There were no nearlies.
He did what he wanted when he wanted, however he wanted.
However he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. He wasn't really a gentleman about it. He was a cannibal about it. There's a reason Eddie Merckx got that nickname. But it did start to come up more and more, the conditions that the athletes were expected to race in. And there was quite a lot of discourse, and there was quite a lot of noise from Adam Hansen at the CPA talking about rider rights, talking about, is it fair to make them race in these conditions? What really struck me was there, in my mind, is no doubt that if the riding is dangerous, if you're talking about going down descents that are dangerous, that have perhaps black ice on the road, especially when they're up in the mountains and there's so much snow, if you're talking about avalanches, it is not fair
No-brainer.
that the riders should be exposed to that. But cold, when it's simply about cold and it's simply about the riders being able to get the number of jackets, I want to put one thing to you. There was a lot of noise made around the riders aren't given the chance to get jackets out of their team cars. But it confused me a little bit, I'll be honest, because I don't want to be the back in my day, but you'd carry your jacket with you. Mm-hmm. So has it changed so much that they will no longer carry jackets with them? This genuine question, but they have to get them from the team car instead?
No, it makes no sense because there's two team cars. So if you're dropped, like if there's a front group, the number one team car stays with the GC riders, and if you're in the second group, then you've always got a team car behind you, and they leapfrog the whole time, even to the point where, if someone punches, the second team car comes up and will feed the rest of the team. So there's always there. And also the clothing's much better now.
So from
the
a
neoprene
practicality
stuff,
point of view, is there a fair argument for extreme weather protocol in the cold? Like, are we being a bit tough on them saying, avalanche, no brainer, but cold, come on?
No, cold, I don't reckon there's any. I mean, if it's the dangerous conditions, if there's ice on the road, get it. If there's, like in the Tour the other year where there was a small, slight avalanche and they stopped the stage where Adam Yates was up the road and they had all the storm. Simon Yates, I think, when he was going to win the stage and they called it off, I get that. That's a no-brainer, 100% like that. But if you're cold because you don't want to go down a 10K descent, then that's rubbish. I mean, we're a blue-collar sport. There's no bums on seats. People come to watch the racing, and it's the 20 days in Italy in the Giro, and yes, it's cold and it's hot and it's windy, but that's May every year and has been for the whole 100 years or how many years the Giro's been going. So that kind of has to stop. That bit of talking around, I'm cold, I don't want to go down a descent, because someone who just paid €1 million to go through Livigno. Like, if that's the case, and we're losing races. Like, we are losing races. I am at the forefront right now in Europe where races are disappearing on a weekly basis. Like, we actually have to come back from Europe early this year because we don't have enough racing. So if we lose races because of money and everything else, I mean, people sponsor cycling because they love it and because everyone in their town can go and watch it. And when you take towns who put money out for races because the riders are cold, then that's going negative in their in that book. in that
It's a
respect.
dance, isn't it? There has to be, for them, it's an ecosystem. If they want to get their $1 million contracts, then they have to go through the towns who pay the money, because that's how it all works. That's essentially where the money comes from, not directly, but
safety issues. There's no conversation. Yes, if it's bad, then I understand that, and I reckon we can still do way more for the traffic furniture in all races. I think that needs to have a blueprint. There's got to be crash barriers on every single pole that's in the middle of the road for every single race on Earth, and that goes from like the 2.2s up to the Grand Tours and World Tour stuff. That needs to be talked about a bit more, I reckon, because we'll get into my experience over the last 8 weeks with the amount of crashes that we had in our racing. But yeah, the safety stuff, there's more needs to be talked about with road furniture and direction in races, and less about I'm cold. So
yeah, I mean, given winter sport exists and the clothing exists, I think that's possibly one thing that is an overreach. But when it avalanche or Maxi?
I saw something cool. Julian Alaphilippe, in his first Giro, he cut the top off one of his bottles and had his jacket stuffed in that.
Yeah, and that's a great idea.
Cool as that.
Yeah.
And you know what? You just put them up your back as well.
Yeah.
So you can.
You look like a humpback whale.
Yeah, I mean, there's also
well, a sprinter climbing myself, with that. Anyway,
that's for sure. But I mean, you always got to find the happy medium between really sweating on a climb and then going over the top, and it's like 4 degrees, and there's a smattering of snow coming down, and then you go dive down 5k, and then it goes up 10 degrees. So there's always that, jacket on, jacket off, jacket on, jacket off. But they've got like 20 staff members, so there's always someone to give a jacket. There's always 2 team cars. And they can change clothes a lot. So I'm glad those days are over for me, and they were hard and they were tough, but it's a blue collar sport, and people come to see the racing and really want those epic stages. I mean, I've seen in the 80s, and I've raced in the snow before too, and I've seen in the 80s Hampsten and Johan Velde, who are just riding with snow all over their, visage, all over the head, and getting through those amazing mountain stages of the Gavia and the Stelvio, which they went this year over those hills. And 1 week before, they were talking about not having the Giro over there, and kind of clears up and they plough the road and they go over it, and we have a great spectacle, and people come to see those stages in the Giro and the Tour and the Vuelta. They want to see the epic stuff, and that's our sport, is that epic. Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see those guys? They rode up a 15k climb, and there was 5 minutes of snow, and then it went through, and everyone's like taking photos. I'll never forget those days for the rest of their life. Even the riders won't.
No, well, that's right. I mean, there is that epic image of Andy Hampsten in '88.
Yeah, Henk put me to work. He'd made me find it. Here, I found it, Henk.
Give us a look. So he's going up, I think it's Stelvio or Gavia.
The Gavia or the Stelvio, which are right close to each other.
No helmet, because it wasn't necessary in that time. No leg warmers, no shoe covers, but thick gloves and a jacket and another jacket on top of that. And he's getting it done. Yeah,
I mean, you got to remember too that the Gavia and the Stelvio are close to 2,700 metres, so it's always like that at the top. Even in the middle of the summer, there's snow and glaciers and everything else. So, and it's a short amount of time where you're riding in those conditions. It's really maybe 30 minutes to 45 minutes where you go over the climb and down the other side, and then you drop down into, say, Bormio, where it's at 1900 or 1600 or whatever, and then you race on. So, but people really want to see that stuff.
They do.
I reckon it's important.
I'm not sure what year it was, but look at that in the background. It's the DeLorean from Back to the Future. That's pretty cool.
It was 88,
well,
so that's about
Kate?
Is that when Knight Rider was on?
Yeah,
there's more white
that.
in the photo than any other colour. I do have a complaint though, if the UCI is listening, that their rain jackets and their neoprene gear should be team colour, because by the time everybody is in the fully covered up, it's black.
Yeah, because you've got your commentator hat on.
Well, no, but even for fans,
yeah.
and photography, like if Andy Hampsten can have it in full colour, he would have been freezing. He wouldn't have had the great gear that they have now. But I think that is a real thing that they need to address.
Yeah, I kind of get it. I'm with you on that, but running a team in Europe, it's kind of difficult to have colour-coded, completely colour-coded raincoats and everything else around that. All the UCI cares about is where your transponder sits and whether they can see the number frame on your bike.
Hold on, all the UCI cares about is if your socks are the correct height.
Don't get me started. I got warned
honest.
by the UCI last week because we had a new run of black sheep clothing that came in that was just the tiniest fraction different than the run we had in January, and they were going to fine me 200 Swiss francs per rider, and I was going to get a 200 Swiss franc. And that's all they were worried about.
Were you wearing the kit too?
No, because I'm the manager. They're like, oh, it's your fault. You've got to sort it out, and you could have the same kit. And we're like, really? So there's guys hitting posts at 80k an hour, but you care about what colour my kit is?
I think
because I've just got a tiny little different. No. Anyway, when you start prioritising that shite over rider safety, then yeah, I get it. So I kind of understand why Adam Hansen and those guys do stick up for riders like that when you see what they are concentrating on, which is that shite, and then what the riders want. So there's a big divide in between what those two priorities are. And, cracking the whip about how different a kit may look, or talking about whether we need colour-coded raincoats and compared to some guy hitting a post at 80k an hour.
It's just a wish list that I'm just putting it on my wish list.
It's getting bigger, that wish list.
It really is. It's volumes thick now. Let's talk about the Aussies, because we had a bit of a misfire from the sprinters, you would say. Caden Groves got close, but no cigar. He ran second a couple of times to Merlier, to Milan. Mm-hmm. So he was up there, but didn't quite happen. Caleb in his first Giro,
gunshot,
didn't happen for him.
No, it's his first Giro he's finished.
Yeah. So what's that about in your mind?
I liked what Caden said. So Caden said, this really just shows that I'm not a pure sprinter. That was the one sentence that I think everyone needs to really think about, because when you actually look at Caden Groves as a bike rider, he's just an animal. He's just a strong mofo who finds his way, who can sprint when he doesn't have the absolute world's best like a Philipsen or a Merlier or a Menu and now Milan, who is obviously the fastest guy. But I want to see Milan up against Philipsen in the Tour now. I know Milan and Philipsen and...
Well, I don't know that Milan's riding the Tour.
Well,
I think he's
not.
getting ready to defend their Olympic team's pursuit title.
Yeah, and good on him, because that's what's... he's just come, tick, 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 and righto, there's my season's goal. I'm on to the next one. So... But with Caden, he's just come out and said, listen, it shows I'm not really the pure sprinter. Yes, the team worked for me here because this is all we've got here. But he's going to win Grand Tour stages. He's going to pick one up. But I'm excited for him for Worlds. So
and we'll talk about it a bit later. But maybe Olympics as well. I think he'd go very well on the Paris course.
I think he needs to go there, 100%. But with Caleb, I think. I don't know. I mean, he's gone back to Green Edge this year. He's obviously comfortable there. Mejek's done admirably as a pilot, but I think he just needs a clear run one day. But he seemed to lose a little confidence, and when you start, not going for those gaps as a sprinter, I think you're done for that race. Maybe that's just a little period that's going through his head right now. I think he's still one of the fastest ever, but. Yeah, for this Giro, he wasn't there. He just couldn't make that decision. That really, as a sprinter, you need to find those gaps and push your way through those gaps, or find a way, which like Robbie used to do all the time. Like he just found a way, he found a hole, he just make that decision. And at the moment, he's just not on top of his game. So that sucks for him, because he's not done. I don't reckon he's done.
No, I don't think he's done either. 21...
Well, people are talking about it. Like, he's done. Like, it's like a race car driver who doesn't go for the hole. He's dead as a race car driver. They talk about it in the F1. I don't think that's the case. I think that's just happened now. So
it can be for the race, though. Like, it's hard. It's one thing to look at turning that around in a season, but in a 21-day race, including a lot of days where you're just in pure survival mode, that's a different thing.
But he's fit. Like, he was getting to hard finishes. Like, I didn't watch many Giro stages because I was super busy doing the races that we were doing, but highlights that I saw and everything else, he's getting to those hard finishes. And as a sprinter, and he's not known for that, and he can be, hot and cold. So he's super fit. He just wasn't taking his chances, which just kind of sucks for him because it all revolves around that, those 5 or 6 days in the Giro. So if you can't it sucks to be a sprinter when you can't sprint.
Well, we talk a lot going in about Caleb and Caden and their sprint opportunities. We talked a lot about Ben O'Connor. We're going to talk about him a bit more. I want to talk about who I think is the most underrated Aussie talent out there. The last few episodes I've been bringing him up every time. Michael Storer. He ran 10th.
Yeah, exactly.
He is
no one talks about him.
Phenomenal. He won the KOM jersey at the Vuelta in 21.
Yep.
He's riding for Tudor Pro Cycling now under the guidance of Fabian Cancellara.
It's probably half the reason he flies under the radar, because they're an up-and-coming team and they're not really talked about in the same breath. You know
but
what
he was formerly at DSM. Like, he's been on the bigger teams, but why aren't we keeping more of a look on him? Like, we talk so much about our other climbers, but he had some incredible rides.
Yeah, and he's super strong. He won a couple of stages of the Vuelta a couple of years ago. Really come out of, the woodwork. He's another West Australian, I might add.
We'll add him to the trophy list.
The legends. Well, he's a legend. I mean, when you win Grand Tour stages, and I think he's just a quite unassuming guy that really doesn't take a lot of the limelight or much of the media's attention, because he's kind of in the background. He's not really fighting for the overall win, but 10th in my books that's just legendary. I mean, how many top 10 finishes have Australians had in any Grand Tour? There's a little one for the public out there. You can have them work out how many top 10s people have. I mean, Cadell, Phil Anderson, who else has finished in the top 10 of Grand Tours
we've got our, Richie Port.
Yeah, Richie.
Ben O'Connor.
Ben, Michael, Richie,
Jai
is less than 10, so he's up there, and he's a legend, an absolute legend
status. Let's kind of
he's
go
not
on
old
Storer
either.
watch too. No, I think he's 27, and he's just really impresses me.
Yeah,
the way he races, he always. If you look in the back of shots, he's often just sitting there looking far more comfortable, but he's not one of the big names they talk about.
No.
I love it.
No,
let's talk about him more.
Henk, what's with the talent out of the West, WA?
Oh, it's something in the water over there,
something
mate.
in the water.
What's in the water?
Something in the water, No, I actually, this was just a strong cycling background from always has been.
You've got some really solid climbers.
There's no hills over there.
There's not a lot of, there's
Excuse
Kings
me?
Park.
No hills over there. Well, we haven't got bloody Buffalo and Bright and, Threadbow and everything else like that. I just think they breed them tougher over there, mate. I think it's just tougher over there. And they've got to cop it from the East Coast all the time.
Yeah.
So they just, it was like they just become tough.
Speaking of your Buffaloes and whatnot, our little Buffalo warrior, Plappy, he did pretty well.
He did. And
had a tough few stages in there. But
I cannot believe that someone who gets sick mid-Grand Tour pushes through like that. Like, he had to let the wheel go a few times. Like, mate, if you're in bed with a fever, how the hell are you getting up the next morning and setting yourself going, right, I'm going to try and win the time trial in 3 days. And I'm in the fetal position right now after, 240K, and I've just done 11 days and I'm crook as Rookwood, and then, he comes and runs 5th in the time trial. That's epic. And he was really good before he got sick too. Let's not forget that.
I've long said that he's his own worst enemy. Like, he doesn't really know when to stop. So he may end up in a massive hole after this because he's pushed himself through some significant illness to be able to achieve it.
Just depends on how they all recover from a Grand Tour. Everyone grows an extra leg once you come out of the Grand Tour. You really do get super strong, and if you can finish it, and
if you can recover from it,
yeah,
right?
if he's not completely, absolutely destroyed today after he finished the Giro, he'll be fine. So, I mean, I'm sure that Green Edge would have pulled him if he was too sick. I'm sure he would have fought them tooth and nail, but he would have listened to, their medical team. But he's obviously in great form and came into the Tour with good form. And when you've got good condition, even when you're sick, you can recover. So they must have been like, okay, you're going to have to let the wheel go for a few days and just chill and then see how you go in the last week. But, great start to the Giro. I think he did really, really well. And I love how he has a crack. That's huge.
I do too.
Just don't want to be in the background all the time and just finishing somewhere on GC. There's nothing worse than someone who doesn't animate a bike race. And Plappy's always going to give us that. So you got to love him for that.
Oh, he'll always be entertaining, that's for sure. Now, to just go full circle before we move on to the women's dominance in Britannia, I really want to talk about that. Go Aussies. Pogacar. Now, his team, the sport manager for UAE, who did a tremendous job, the whole team, I might say. This is a quote from him. Some people might say he's a tyrant, that he's a cannibal, that he wants to win everything. We are paid to win and we race to win. We don't believe in the idea of gifts. No one gifts anything in the sport.
That's true.
Okay, but on stage 20, Geraint Thomas, sitting on the podium spot, went down of his own accord, clipped a wheel, had a bit of a whoopsie.
Yep.
Pogacar kind of led the
calm
podium. Yeah, led the calm to make sure that nobody attacked or rode on through that. That was potentially an opportunity for Martinez or potentially for Ben O'Connor to get onto the podium if they had have ridden. I think this is really curious. Everyone's saying what a great sportsman Pogacar is. But if they're saying we don't believe in the idea of gifts, is it really his position in the bunch to slow everybody down for a minor fall that Thomas caused on his own in the middle of the bunch and almost nullify the other riders?
See, I think what Pogacar would have done there is just gone to, was it Micah who was still there in the group? Just gone, Thomas has crashed, let's not ride full gas. Like, you guys can all go if you want, but we're not. We don't have to. You want to, go for your life.
Okay.
We're going to follow.
Okay. But if Ben O'Connor, for example, if he and his team had have gone full gas and gone on the attack to try and get that podium spot off Thomas, would he have then made himself the least popular man in the peloton?
I wouldn't want to be in Ben O'Connor's shoes if you said to your teammates, ride full noise, I don't care, he's not getting back on. He would not be popular, and good luck ever going to another team. I honestly don't reckon many blokes would do it. You would have to really dislike someone to actually go, you know what, he's got what's coming to him.
It's the code. It's like a bro
code. It kind of
code.
is. And I don't reckon too many blokes would do it, or ladies for that matter, would go and say, oh, well, he's crashed. I'm only 30 seconds behind. If we ride full here, I'm on the podium. Like, you don't want to take a victory, or you don't want to take a spot on a podium from someone else's misfortune. And I think that's what's happened there. So I'm glad that didn't happen for his sake, for his standing, for his longevity, which is a good call. I mean, Pogacar could have stopped on the side of the road and had an espresso and waited for him and had a chat with him to get back on. He didn't care. Like, he was never losing the Giro.
Yeah, it didn't matter to Pogacar.
So, but didn't he get sick as well, the Giro?
He did. He battled through the last couple of days. So, look, maybe it's a moot point because there was no opportunity for him to be able to attack because he was simply surviving himself. He might have been quite glad.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, you're 7 minutes in the lead. You wake up and you've got a 40-degree fever. They're not waiting for you.
No,
and there's no gifts.
Well, and there was only 35 seconds back to fifth, actually, with Tiberi from Bahrain Victoria. So, it's not just O'Connor who could have made himself unpopular in that moment.
You'd have to be pretty bloody desperate or have some gigantic bonus system in your contract for you to ride full noise when one of the most popular blokes in the peloton in the last 25 years, that old, so 20 plus years, crashes and you hit him. Good luck.
Well, incidentally, it was also his birthday, so that would have been very unsporting
Happy
of him.
Happy effing birthday, mate.
He just turned 38.
Is that all?
Geraint Thomas.
Jesus, goes
Yeah.
all right, doesn't he?
He does.
How do you like? He nearly won the Giro last year. Like Roglic got him in the last time trial, and he's still on the podium. So he's one of the most loved blokes in the pelo. So
And not only that, Henk, he continued to do his podcast every day
on the massage table.
on the massage table.
What a legend.
We should get a massage table, actually. But
What for?
I
for
just like a
podcasting?
massage.
well, for me, I could just switch the show in here on a massage table. I get sore. But anyway,
That would another demographic. I like it.
Yeah.
Get a whole nother demographic.
A demographic that we want? I don't know.
we don't really
Hey.
care.
We welcome
We
everyone.
will welcome everyone on board for whatever. Hang on.
But Henk, I just want to put it to both of you. So there's no Roglic, no Jonas, no who else? No Remco at the Giro. So what's this look like going into the Tour? Can he sustain this?
Well, I think. Do you guys think that he backed it off in the last week?
I do, yeah.
I reckon he needed to back it off in the last week, but
I don't think he did. I think he could
Well,
have
Monte
more.
Grappa, he went on Monte Grappa, but I reckon he could have won this Giro by 20 plus minutes if he wanted to.
Well, that wouldn't have been smart, given what he's still going for this year.
Well, he's just got to think that the third week of the Tour is the most important week of the year if he wants to double, because you can't be this good. And maybe I'm talking, and I don't know how good he is, but if you're super in May, you've also got to keep that going, and not a lot
To
of
the
bike
end
riders.
of July.
The third week, the last mountain stage in July, he's got to have this form.
But that's what I mean, mate. Would Roglic and that be shaking in their boots at his form, or would they be glad he did the Giro?
I don't reckon Roglic ever shakes in his boots about anyone.
No.
Ski boots.
I reckon
He just needs to stay on his bike.
they kind of paddle their own canoes, but they'll come in underdone, no question.
And ride into form.
Yeah, and right into it. So it will be an interesting in that regard. I mean, speaking of which, Jumbo Visma,
Yeah.
they've changed names. Sorry, Visma Lease bike.
Yeah.
Their best rider in 22nd, over an hour down, Attila Volta. So I think they, even as a team, are just
Well, they've had
trying
a
to
shocking year,
rebuild,
right?
haven't they?
Well, I mean, when you lose the two best bike riders in the world, before even the Giro starts, you lose one of the best classics riders in the world in Wout, who goes out, and then Vingegaard, and they're serious injuries, both of them, and they take a long time to come back. Like Wout's racing again in Norway.
Fell off again.
And Jonas.
Stay on your bike, Wout.
Did he fall off again?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, God. Anyway, he's fine, though.
He's fine.
okay. Elbow lacerations.
He's all right.
But, I mean, everyone's talking, well, is Vingegaard going to be right for the Tour? I think he'll be fine third week of the Tour, just depending whether. I think the danger of the first 10 days, he'll just get better and better in the Tour if he goes.
Yeah.
Same with Wout. But he's already said he's not going the Tour, is he?
No.
Wout's out.
No,
so.
Wout's out.
So, yeah.
Paris, I think, will be his big focus.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're in for a ripper Tour after seeing that. I mean, can go either way with the Pog. It can be exceptional now, have some time off, and then he's going to have to come back and really concentrate on being good in the third week of the Tour, or he could just smash everyone in the first week. And that's the great thing about cycling. You never know who's going to be incredible in the Tour. Not many riders have done it. Not many riders have done the double.
Well, no, and you have to look at, you can't just look at his form in a vault. You've got to look at what's going on around him and the other riders coming and going in the field at the Giro and the course. And so I think it's far more complex than simply saying, he'll be unbeatable. He'll go in with, a target on his back. But the last couple of years we've seen him beatable.
Well, he was beatable. And remember, he did break his wrist. Was it wrist or collarbone
His
last
wrist,
year?
yes.
So he went in underdone, and Vingegaard had his measure, and maybe it's going to be a reversals this year, which is kind of cool, actually, because Pog wins 2, Vingegaard wins 2, and now this year we don't know what's going to happen with Remco coming in and Roglic actually. I reckon he's super hungry, Roglic. I'm really excited to see what he does in the Tour.
And I think he'll have more freedom too, with a bit of a question mark still on Jonas.
Well, then he'll have a Red Bull helmet.
Well, they'll look completely different.
Yeah, there you
Yes. Now, let's talk about the women in Britannia, the Aussie women, dominated. It's only a 2.1 race, so not a World Tour race, but Grace Brown won the opening time trial. Sarah Roy won the next stage. Go Roy, so good to see her back. And then Grace Brown won the third stage.
So did they win the overall?
They won the overall.
So yeah. Grace won the overall?
Grace won the overall. Jesus. So for the first time in a while, it was a really good opportunity to see the Aussies kind of do their thing and ride their style of racing. And the reason I think this is really important is because if we look forward to the Olympics, which is such an important race, especially for the women, you don't have teams of 6 or 7. You don't even have teams of 5. It's a much smaller field. Most of the countries have 2 or 3 riders. And so that is an environment where the Aussies can do their thing a bit more. And I think one of the reasons they've done races like Britannia instead of the Tour of Britain that's on at the moment is so that they can get used to, being able to race in their own style.
Yeah, it's hard there too. I've just come back from that region, which we did the Tour of Britannia, and it's windy, it's hilly, small roads, it's dangerous left and right, it's technical, it's super hard out there. Whereas you are right, our girls are actually racing, just finished in London, and it's like a sprint fest. Great roads.
I mean, Grace Brown won in Liège, and that was, the first time we've seen an Aussie woman win there. But before that, people for quite a while had been talking about, almost like they were talking about Caleb, like, is she past it? Like, what's happened to Grace Brown? And then all of a sudden...
She had a career year.
Yeah, and you can really see that for all the debating we might like to do or for all the insight you might have, the athletes' individual programs determine so much about their form, doesn't it? I mean, they start 100 races a year maybe, but...
It's everything. And we were talking not so long ago about how Grace Brown, we thought, she's going to win Roubaix, but then she goes out and wins a hilly classic. And then comes out and wins Tour de Bretagne for women. So, yeah, she stepped it up hugely. And Sarah Roy, who's always been super strong, good to see her get a win too.
It is. She's also had a tough time of, doubting herself and wondering whether she'd be able to make the top step again. So we love you, Roy. Awesome to see. No, it is. I mean,
it is.
When you
Agreed.
Know a lot of the athletes...
Makes it better too, doesn't it?
Does,
when you know the ladies or you follow and you know their struggles and their ups and downs because,
puts more context than just the result sheet.
Yeah, the result sheet's so impersonal.
Oh, isn't it?
It is. Well, just results, but it's so impersonal. You really want to know the story behind the riders. It's
100%.
It's so much better when you realise what they've been through to get there. And that's what every athlete struggles with is like the down days, the days you dropped, you crashed, you're sick, you got a parasite, you're like infighting in the team and you get to put it all together and there's only a certain amount of days and you don't win many races in your career. So when you can, that's what makes it more special and it's the human side of our sport, which is fantastic. And yeah, so chapeau to two of those ladies having great years. So and I think... goes to show too that experience counts a lot in this sport and your experience and how you win and how you've learnt. Like the young girls and the young guys need to understand that. They've got to all go through those periods of, downtime and where you're getting your ass handed to you in the crosswind and, you're in the last group and you come in, you're just inside a time limit and then 3 months later you're winning. So it makes it all the more special because every cyclist in the world's been through it.
Exactly. Merksy?
Remember at Boxing Day last year, we turned up at your sister's house, which is Roy's coach, with 20 bottles of wine. And Sarah was in the garage in some kind of suit, like a sweatsuit on a trainer.
She was. Yeah,
I thought you were just going to say she was on the goon juice.
No, everybody rolled in very jolly.
Punishing herself. And I was like, what are you doing, Sarah? It's Boxing Day.
She looked like a painter's suit.
Yeah, well, she looked like the mood from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, doing some heat training.
Kind of. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's quite cool. Anyway, their dedication is real. Tell us a little bit about Henk's wonderful adventures, Henk's European travel. How'd the team go? Lots of falls.
Oh, yeah, it was the year of the crash for us.
Is that like on the Chinese calendar?
No.
Between the rooster and the dog?
Or the rooster or whatever, but no, I don't know. We must have run over a few black cats or something. It was a good period. We did lots of racing, went over and did Circuit d'Ardennes, which is a super hilly northern French race, Tour de Bretagne, Tour of Greece, and some one-day races. And literally every single day they went down. My mechanic was working until midnight most nights, changing handlebars and forks and spokes and re-gluing tyres because these guys, and I was literally walking around with a first aid kit most nights trying to patch up and sending them to the doctor, and had to do a heap of, I wouldn't call them scat tests because I'm not a doctor, but a lot of concussions, which is kind of scary, and that's an immediate pull them out of the race, and we had, almost won a race where I had to pull them out. I had one guy who crashed 3 times in 25 kilometres, including hitting a back of a car which stopped in front of him for a puncher at 70k an hour, and had to put him in the front seat. He didn't know what country he was in.
Jeez, that's tough just from a human perspective, right?
Yes, and you've got to manage this stuff as best you can with these young men. I mean, I'm in charge of the men's program when I'm away. The girls had some similar experiences with crashes, but
is it because they're concerning? Is it obviously there's course design, there's a lot of road furniture, there's incidents like the car stopping that's unacceptable. But do you think it's pretty tough for the Aussies who've only raced domestically really to go over there and be in those conditions?
I think they need that. Like we race over in the NRS here and in Australia where there's big wide roads, not much traffic. Yes, I understand, but like you've got to get onto it quickly.
Yeah.
Like you've got to have heads up. I always tell them over the radio when we can, like you can't be looking at the hub in front of you. You're going to be looking 150 to 400 metres. You're going to be reading the bunch in front of you. And it's a bit difficult when you're in the biggest gear you got and you're at 185 beats a minute. I understand that, but it's the same for everyone, and they have to get used to it. And these are the years that they will form them as bike riders when they're developing. They're getting used to the speed and the technicality and the big bunches and everything else. So we may talk about how, yes, it's dangerous and, yes, it's the sport we're in, riding around with Lycra styrofoam on your head at 60k an hour in the wet, coming down a descent with mud on it. So these are the things that make you professional bike riders. So, that technicality, that, super speed with all the other World Tour Academy teams and AG2R and DSM and Arkea and Astana and Lotto and Quickstep, and we're riding with these guys, and yes, they're used to it, but we have a short window, and they rode really well. We got some good results. Declan Drizzt won a big one-day race in Holland. Ronde van Overijssel.
That's massive.
Guys, it is massive. And if you look at the sprint, he was on his own with about 80 guys left. He had no teammates left because they all threw themselves off the bike before that. And he went with 400 to go and he did a double kick. So he kicked to hit the front, realised, I'm here now, I've got to go again. So some great footage of that. And Declan's had a fantastic year and he held off a bunchy going with 400 to go. So if any sprinters out there know, you try and do 2 kicks and 400 metres, see how you go. There's not much left in the tank.
No, I mean, how did the athletes handle it? Because it is scary, it is intimidating, and when you do come down once, twice, you start to lose a little bit of confidence. How are you getting them to get on the start line the next day without that in the front of their mind?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of nurse them through the day when they have crashed. They're like nurse them straight back on the bike. I'll put you on the back of the car, which is legal.
Give them a little cuddle.
No cuddles.
No cuddle. Oh, no cuddles.
No cuddles.
Afterwards?
No wiping of bums.
No
either.
wiping of bums.
So, but no. I mean, we're trying to turn them into young men and young women who can stand up for themselves, and the best way to do that is just to be very direct, but also not nasty. And I try and go that direct route. It's like, okay, you've crashed. Are you okay? Have you hit your head? No. Do you feel okay? Can you continue? Right, get on. My mechanic's pushing them down the road in 15 seconds. So they're on the back of the car and they're in the convoy within 2 or 3k. We then stay with them to the back of the convoy. We make sure they are okay. They've got bottles. Are you okay? Fine. All right, mate. There's your teammate. He's taking you back to the front. And this is how you need to continue the rest of your bike race. And if that's okay, if you can't do that, then probably best to go to a different sport, because this is what it's about. It's about they're gladiators. And I mean that in without sounding too dramatic, but if you do crash, it's part of the sport. And every cyclist that I know will have five touchdowns a year. 2 or 3 being small and 1 big off, and 1 where you might, have to stop racing for a little while. But that's just when you do 100 days racing a year and you're doing 35,000K a year, that's just the risk that you're taking being a cyclist. So, but yeah, I mean, they rode really well and they learnt a lot, and we did some great high-level racing with World Tour Academy riders, and they stuck it to them. I just wish they had a little bit more luck this year, and maybe that's what happens moving forward, because they're not done. We're still racing for another 2.5 months in Europe, and Matt and Ben will be taking that forward. Matt, with a lot of experience as Green Edge director, knows exactly what he's doing, and they're very lucky to have him as DS. But they've got some great racing to go. But some good results. But the main thing for our team is just development. So we're not really going there, okay, we're going to win today, we're going to do this, and we're going to put this plan. It's like, all right, guys, hold on. Today.
Survive.
Hold on today. Tomorrow, this is where guys like you, Blake Agneletto, where we can win a stage. And he got great top 10s. He was top 10 in any bunchy all the time. 3rd, 5th, 8th, 10th, he's always there. So he's someone to look forward in the future. And Declan was fantastic. And the guys like Cohen Jeston and Josh Cranage, they're just kids. The kids. They're like 18, 19-year-olds just coming first dipping their toe in the water. So for them, it's all about experience, and crashing's part of it, and they'll move on and keep going and on to the next one. And doing stage races is also great because they just get huge power out of it. So
well, look, and if Benny Kirsten's over there for the next round, he'll give them a cuddle.
Yeah, yes, Benny is warm and fuzzy, and everyone loves him, and he's a great man.
It's like the team mascot.
Yeah, he is.
I have a rookie question, Henk.
Yeah.
Like in footy, the scouts, they go to the games when they're young. Are there scouts that are looking at your guys?
Yes. Yeah. Every race.
Races? Yeah.
Every race.
Yeah.
I was actually talking, you see them all over the place. The World Tour guys come and watch all the high-level under-23 races. I was talking to the Bora Scout actually at the first 2 one-days races we did in Italy, and they just follow the whole year around the under-23. And they're not just looking at their team, they're looking at absolutely everyone, and they have a conversation with you. And they go, oh, what's this kid like, and how's he? And you go, oh, he's a bloody ripper, or, and he's very young, he needs some work, but he's going to be good, and all this kind of stuff. And this guy's got great numbers, and on this one, he's just a born winner, and he's got a 30-year-old head on his shoulders. So, there's a lot going on in the background, and especially in that development squad.
And when you are completely honest about your riders, when you can say, he's still a bit young, but he'll get there, then they trust you more too, right? So they'll come to you more. And
well, you don't bullshit those guys, you get found out real quick.
Yeah. Well, that's not good for you or the athlete. That's not a good ecosystem.
And we've got a great track record of putting 1 to 2 riders every year into a World Tour team, and that's the ladies and the men's. And I think that will continue. And Bridgelane do the same. They seem to be putting 1 to 2 up there. So, those 2 powerhouse squads seem to be the destination for most young Australians, male and female, who, and we need that in Cycling Australia. We need those squads to prop up, and we need that in between grassroots to us to that next level.
Now, really quickly, because we're running out of time, Hank, who knew you could talk?
Oh, no.
Who knew? There's been some selections that have happened, Junior World Championships and such. At the end of this week, Oz Cycling will nominate to the AOC who should go to the Paris Olympics. But especially looking at the juniors and with the track, there was a little bit of discourse in the selections where full teams weren't filled and put forward. And one of the justifications is that Oz Cycling don't just send somebody to get experience. They have to be hitting some kind of performance level to get there. But something that stood out to me, and this is pointed out by the parents more than anything, is they're starting to look at things like average speeds and saying, well, the winner did this average speed, and our rider, based on their win at the national championships, their average speed is, not up to scratch. And it just occurred to me that it's coming down to a lot of data. Like they're stripping a bit the athletes themselves and their potential out of it, and starting to make decisions based on a whole lot of numbers. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, everyone probably thinks I'm a dinosaur now in the sport.
I don't think that's fair, but...
Well, when you start talking about watts and pound numbers and everything else, probably I am a bit of a dinosaur because I'm more of a realist and it's based on fact and how you see somebody, how they perform, how they are in a team environment, how they're results based and whether they're learning. But the idea to not take someone to a junior worlds because they can't do it for experience is unacceptable. And two, I think if you're basing stuff on numbers, then we've lost the plot.
But is it fair to throw junior athletes in to a world championship when they're not going to perform competitively?
I absolutely think 100% that you have to take them. You have to take them and you have to... Well, why would they... For me, you've got to... Juniors, there's a word because of the juniors. They're not professional. They're not under 23 development academy riders. They're juniors. They're going to junior worlds for experience. Whether they're going to win or they're going to get last, they need to go there and they need to get their head kicked in because then they know the level they're at. Because if you don't take them and they're just going to ride around at like Heffron Park speed, do you know what I mean? Like that's not going to work. They need to go and go, oh my God, these guys are good. I need to pull my finger out. And the experience. Oh, look how well the Italian team rode at the Junior Worlds. They had like 7 guys lined up in the crosswind and they rode together as a team. Oh, we should do that. Why don't we do that? Like, because you can't get that at Heffron Park or in Centennial Park or wherever where there's no experience. So you've got to take juniors. You've got to throw them in the deep end and they've got to find out what the level is.
Do you think it's hard for Aussies from juniors when you dominate so much in Australia because it's a small talent pool, whereas in Europe you're not just racing your national title, you're also racing all the other countries around you, and so unless you are really the very, very best, you're quite aware of what you're not.
Yeah.
Whereas the Aussies can go over there going, I'm the queen of the world, I'm the king of the world, I win everything. It's such a different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why all juniors should go. That's why they should go. They should race in Australia January, February, March, and they should try and find a club team over there to go and race because you can race in Holland, Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, anywhere on a club team and still have 150 juniors.
Get your butt
on
kicked.
The start line, yes. And
good for you to get your butt kicked.
But they all do it. I did it. I'm sure that everyone in your era went over to Europe and learnt how to race bikes. Like back in our day, it was handicap. And yeah, I'm a dinosaur. But, you had to go over there to learn and race against the best in that country. And even if it was 2 days racing in Belgium and 2 days in France and 5 crits in Holland or whatever, you got to learn how to race as a bike rider. And I think that's important. Otherwise, we're not going to have, the abundance of juniors coming through to squads like ours, ARA Skip Capital and Bridge Lane. So you've got to get over there, you've got to learn, and you've got to go with the national team. It creates a sense of pride when you go away to your first World Championships. They pay for it anyway. The parents
pay for
it all.
The parents and
Cycling
the kids pay for it, yeah.
What does it cost them?
Yeah,
maybe a mechanic, mechanic and a manager.
The track juniors, so road hasn't been selected yet, but for the junior track, the kids that didn't make it, a lot of them went over and raced in Malaysia, I think it was, and did great. It was a great experience for them. So, and that was on the back of the parents. So
Yes.
Bear Liang took them over and
great.
gave them that experience, and I think that was unreal.
And that's what it should be about in juniors. It shouldn't be, oh my God, we're going to get our asses handed to us. We're not going to send a team. It's all about experience. So what if they're a minute down or whatever it is? They need to understand the level they need to get to, and they're never going to find that out unless they go and do that. It's not embarrassing for Cycling Australia to go over there and say, they're not good enough. We're not going to waste our money. That's rubbish. It's not the attitude.
It's interesting. And, we'll continue to have this conversation because teams will continue to be named for more events and, of course, the Olympic team. So I'm really interested in your thoughts on that because we're so limited. Very small teams for the Olympics. There will be big names who miss out, who there will be people outraged about. so we can debate
Sprinters. Just take sprinters.
I tend to agree. It's going to be a hard race.
And we talked about 2 of them today. So
yes, we did.
Caden
Groves.
Go, Caden.
Yeah, go, Caden. Henk, welcome back.
Oh, it's great to be back, Kate. I'm sure we'll do a few more of these in the next couple of weeks.
We will, Merksy. How good is it to have Henk back in studio?
Yeah, it's very good. He puts me to work.
He does.
Find this, find that. Yeah.
Hey, but you do an exceptional job.
You are. You're good
We
at it,
are.
It's good to have you back, Hank. And I just want to check, is that a skivvy? You go to Europe, is that a skivvy?
No, this is just a jumpy.
The turtleneck.
I thought it was a
No,
skivvy.
not quite a turtleneck. Turtleneck sweater, maybe.
No, it's very Euro.
It
very
is.
Euro.
It's
very,
kind of
very
Euro. I
nice.
just pulled it out of my suitcase.
Yeah. Very good.
It's a bit chilly
Looking
here.
good.
Episode 97 here at the Wheelhouse. Not far off that.
Not far off the 100.
Not far off the hungy.
We might be able to make it.
Yeah,
Before I head
I'll
back to the
bake a
tour.
cake. I'll bake a cake for the 100th
The
episode.
Wheelhouse 100.
Yeah, make it gluten free.
That sounds like a good race. It's like a good race. The Wheelhouse 100.
The Wheelhouse 100. We can
yeah.
make it happen. There'll be cake at the end of the Wheelhouse 100.
Oh, I'm in. If
Everyone
there's
will-
cake involved.
Everyone
Have a
will
look
want to
at my
join.
waistline.
Keep wearing the black turtleneck sweaters and no one needs to know. It's very
Exactly.
flattering.
Why do you think I'm wearing it?
Over and out.
Ciao, ciao.
Catch ya.